I think the job of a political cartoonist really is to tell the story simply, very, very quickly. When you're working in a newspaper, you're fighting against headlines, photographs, you've got skillfully designed advertisements there, all of which are vying for the attention of the reader. And so my job really is to pow, smack them between the eyes, if I can, with the drawing. That means you've got to be quite sort of black or white about your point of view. You can't really say on the other hand in a drawing. You've got to take a very strong point of view. And yes, include strong things in there, like people being stabbed, blood, whatever. If one's drawing sort of war situations, which are often, you have to show the horrors of war. So I think it's certainly a way, it's vying for attention in my case. Well, part of the fun of working on a newspaper and part of the horror of it is the deadline. You have to deliver on time. There's a space in the newspaper waiting for you. And when it's 1 o'clock on Saturday or whatever your deadline is, it doesn't matter. The drawing's got to go. If you may have a better idea, you may think, oh, if I wish I'd done this, or the drawing's not good enough, tough. It's got to go. So there is that constriction. On the other hand, it does produce things. A deadline will produce something from you that may not exist otherwise. If it weren't for the deadline, you might have been watching television or up at the pub or something, but the deadline actually produces a piece of work. So over the years, I think a lot of my work has been produced under this duress. Having done it now for 50 years, almost all of that in the Sunday Times, I've grown able to find something to say about things, even if there is no strong point. Naturally, I prefer a really good, strong political time, ghastly though it was, Tony Blair going with Bush and attacking Iraq illegally and telling us that, we've got 4-minute warning or whatever it was. All of those lies, I think that leads to very, very strong drawings. Whereas a lot of domestic politics is rather sort of boring and sort of poodles along and who cares anyway. And most people, don't know who these politicians are anyway. A lot of people don't know who they are. So one's working in the sort of a vacuum there. Well, I don't kid myself that the drawings in any way have any impact at all. I bashed Bush and I bashed Nixon before that. Neither of them said, oh, I see the error of my ways. Now I see Gerald Scarfe's drawings, I'm going to change my ways. Of course not. They don't have any effect. And politicians are very thick-skinned. That's how they got there. And the terrible truth about politicians, in a way, is that I'm probably just adding grist to their mill. I'm just helping their career. A lot of them write and ask for them to hang, to hang the pictures. Oh, may I have that? I'd love it. You must see it hanging in the lavatory when you're going to. Next time you go to the loo, you must have a look at all the cartoons in there. They're marvelous. So I don't sort of think that I have any effect in that way, unless it's a cumulative effect. I think bashing away at something like, if you think of a movement like CND. The fact that there was public swell about it, that there was a lot about it in the papers, it eventually became a movement and it eventually did achieve something. I remember drawing Mick Jagger, back in the 70s, I suppose it was. And I got a letter from 114 schoolgirls. It was 3 classes in the school and they'd all signed it. And they said, "Dear Mr. Scarfe, for what you've done to our Mick, we're going to get you and cut your balls off." They didn't catch me, incidentally. And so, there is that reaction. On the other hand, recently I did a drawing of Angela Merkel breastfeeding Spain, Italy, and Greece. That Germany is supporting these countries. And I think it's 5 Labour MPs, obviously, maybe they were feminists or I don't know, but they said, "How dare you depict in the newspaper a woman breastfeeding, You wouldn't dare do this to a man." And they obviously haven't seen the men I've drawn with their willies. So I mean, anything is grist to the wheel. And going back to the element of shock, that one has to shock. I think even sexual shock is any kind of shock is good as a cartoonist, I feel. And I've always pushed the parameters there since I started. I've always wanted to push it further and further. There are certain things you can't draw in a newspaper, you know, and there is a sort of barrier there. But I'm always pushing it to see what I can get away with.